Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today on another session of We Connect Academy Learning from Women Leaders Around the World series. My name is Andrea, and today I am very happy to introduce Sarah Jane Butler, founder and CEO of Parental Choice, a certified company based in the UK. Today, she's going to talk about employee well-being and why it is beneficial to consider a well-being program for your employees as a business owner, how to do it, and what are the implications. I'll let Sarah introduce herself, but I would like to remind all attendees that you're in listen-only mode. So prepare to type down your questions in the question box on the GoToWebinar control panel that you will find at the right side of your screen. I will make sure to read all your questions out loud once the webinar is completed. So feel free to start making questions as soon as you have them. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available after today's session. It will be emailed to all attendees and also available on our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please find us searching for We Connect International on YouTube. All right, we are ready to start. So thank you so much, Sarah Jane, for being here with us today. The virtual floor is yours. Over to you.
Thanks, Andrea, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all of you, depending on where you are. My name is Sarah Jane Butler. I am the founder and CEO, as Andrea said, of Parental Choice Limited. Parental Choice Limited was set up by myself about 10 years ago in order to support employees specifically around their well-being. Recently, we have had a greater focus on SMEs, and we are concentrating, particularly during COVID-19, on enabling employers to support their employees as best they can. I'm going to stop sharing my webcam for the moment so that you guys can concentrate on the slides rather than on myself. But if you do have any queries at all, please do put them in the chat box and I will stop what I'm doing and try my best to answer any queries that you may have. So, as has been perfectly evident over the last few months, we are living in a constantly evolving world and our workplaces are increasingly flexible, even I might say fragile. The pressures on people are constantly increasing, and for employers, their employee well-being is of growing importance, especially within SMEs who have smaller staff numbers, and therefore when well-being goes wrong, it has a greater impact. Today, I'll be looking at how SME employers can improve their employees' well-being such that it makes a difference to the company without costing the earth. So, I'd like to start with some stats to provide a snapshot of well-being in the workplace pre-COVID-19. The stats that you have in front of me are from the Bupa Workplace Wellbeing Census that was taken in May-June of last year. 4,000 employees were surveyed from private sector businesses, big and small, UK-wide. 76% of them said their well-being was good, of which 15% was very good and 61% fairly good. But overall, nearly 1/4 said they had poor well-being in a typical working week, of which 19% said fairly poor and 4% said very poor. Nearly 1/3 of under 35s rated themselves as having poor well-being, which was much more than older people surveyed. So the stats show that the younger working population is really struggling. So why does this matter to employers? Well, the combined economic ill health related absence and presenteeism in the UK amounted pre-COVID to £73 billion in lost productivity. It has been estimated that there are 70,000 deaths attributed to inactivity, whilst burnout and work-related stress results in rising compensation payouts to employees. This is why it matters. Pre-COVID, Mercer Marsh Benefits research concluded that 55% of our working population was at risk, either consciously or unconsciously with health risks, whether mental or physical. Their view was that people are at daily risk of mental health issues, financial concerns, sleep deprivation, as well as poor physical health caused by poor nutrition and lack of physical exercise. They estimated that 25% of Britons are expected to experience some type of mental or behavioural health issue in any given year. And while mental health and musculoskeletal problems are the two biggest reasons of absence from the workplace, they are both easily preventable and take much longer to cure than prevent in the first place. These stats are again from the Bupa 2019 Workplace Wellbeing Survey. The census asked, does your employer have any health and wellbeing services available for its employees? And this is what they found. It is interesting to note that just 16% of small companies have wellbeing services and less than 44% of medium-sized companies. In contrast, 73% of large companies have access to these services. Wellbeing programs and employee assistance programs have traditionally been the preserve of large companies, but that doesn't mean that SMEs can't also make a difference to the well-being of their employees. People often think that it is money that enables you to have a well-being program. I would strongly disagree. Now, moving on to life during lockdown. A McKinsey report on well-being in Europe on life satisfaction highlighted that life satisfaction has fallen to its lowest level since 1980. And the economic impact of the decline in well-being has been 3.5 times the losses experienced in GDP. And it's not just employees that are suffering. Employers are equally suffering with the same challenges. We are very much all in this together. So we're juggling homeschooling and childcare. Believe me, I have 2 children. I've been struggling trying to do both. There's tensions over space, Wi-Fi, desk set up at home. A lot of employees just are not set up in their home environment to have an office as well as living space. There's obviously a lack of incidental face-to-face social connections to fuel energy, productivity, defuse tensions, etc. You know, those moments in the cafe canteen where you can just chill out and chat have disappeared now. People are also working far harder than normal. Time that used to be spent commuting or time spent having a cup of coffee or getting a cup of tea have now been replaced by further webinars, further meetings, further calls, further work. And as such, there's a danger of burnout due to an inability to effectively manage the boundaries of life and work. Especially when you have children and are trying to mix the two, you get to the end of the day and you think, I haven't actually had time to breathe or think or do anything. And furthermore, because we've all been in lockdown, we've all had limited access to diagnostics and care that we might otherwise have been able to access. So where are we now during this rather strange transition period between lockdown and whatever the new normal is going forward? Everything employees cared about before the pandemic matters even more now. There's a greater emphasis on mental health, job security, finances, and the fear of the unknown than ever before. The Mental Health Foundation estimated that before lockdown, conditions like anxiety and depression were the leading cause for time off work, with over 70 million days lost each year, costing employers around £2.4 billion per year. I think it is only fair to say the lockdown has only exacerbated these conditions, with burnout now a real danger. On the positive side, expectations shifted as a result of the positive aspects of lockdown. So flexible working, working from home, more conscious communication, i.e. actively calling somebody on Zoom or Teams, etc., has created a greater sense of honesty and trust. And everyone has pulled together with a united sense of purpose. So for example, Zoom calls showing home and family life, for example, interrupting fighting children, which happens on a fairly regular basis with me, have brought into sharp focus the life of working parents, such that home and work are no longer as separate as before. And previously, bosses may not have been, or line managers may not have been fully aware of the struggles that their working parents may have had. But I think now it's become very obvious when you have your kids turning up any minute. Oops, sorry. So, thinking about employers, I think they are, especially given the financial economic circumstances, I think employers are facing an ever challenging time during this transition back to normality. The duty of care is more important than ever. Health and safety and risk assessments and making sure that you are either 1 or 2 meters apart, making sure that you don't have too many people in the office, taking time out to ensuring that everyone is healthy has become critical. And obviously, employees are very concerned about returning to work and the health and safety in the office. There are also many employees who have appreciated this newfound flexibility of working from home and want them to continue. But clearly that doesn't work for all businesses, and they need people to be in the office. And there are pros and cons to both sides. On top of all of that, employees are now looking at how to balance cost cutting with keeping their workforces happy. So according to Investors in People research conducted with more than 400 companies from a range of different industries, from finance to manufacturing, social care to professional services, 9 out of 10 employers are currently concerned about the well-being of their people, and more than 6 out of 10 have singled out mental well-being as their biggest concern. So I'm hoping that, given the fact that you are all on this call, you have all recognised the importance of well-being. So now you know the research, both before, during, and what is anticipated for after lockdown, and you know that well-being is a key concern for employers and employees. What are the barriers to implementing a well-being programme? An employee benefits survey in May last year showed that 86% of employers cited budget as the reason for not having a well-being programme. The return on investment was considered too hard to measure. 40% cited time, i.e. not enough time to put it in place, not enough time to see the benefits. 32% cited senior support as being lacking, and 22% thought tech limitations were a barrier. But budget is clearly far and away the biggest perceived obstacle. But I would say quite categorically, you can measure return on investment. The return may not be immediately apparent for those accountants amongst you, but for a start, higher productivity results from happier, more motivated staff, meaning less sickness, less absence, less burnout due to presenteeism. Costs in recruitment and training are saved due to higher retention rates, and an improved reputation enhances the standing of your company, meaning you get a higher quality of employees attracted to the company. According to Investors in People, increasing happiness has anything from a 12 to 14% effect on productivity. There are some that estimate that for every pound an organisation invests in mental wellbeing support, they can expect £9 return on investment. So if organisations are to attract and retain talent, then leaders need to respond to this area of employee experience and increase the happiness of their people. It's about increasing happiness as much as it is about reducing stress. Again, according to Investors in People, workers stay in job where there is a good work-life balance, 37%, and a good team, 34%. So, what next? Oh, sorry, one thing that I should also mention is that it's not just employees that are looking for well-being, it's also investors. So investors are now increasingly looking at businesses that are investing in their people. So the rise of ESH, environmental social governance rating, should really not be underestimated. And there's a whole brand of ethical shareholders out there, or investors, that are looking to invest in companies that show a moral, ethical and social responsibility for their well-being. Looking at the employee life cycle, at what point should you be looking at helping your employees? Now, my argument would be throughout the whole cycle. You obviously have between the ages of 20 to 25 new people entering the workplace, and that swings all the way around to people retiring 60 and above. But at each stage in your life, you will encounter different stresses, different problems, different issues, and each one of those issues will affect your life within work. So as you're planning as a young 20-something, the main issue on your mind may be finance, and therefore financial planning and understanding finance, understanding what it needs to take to buy your first place, to cope with your rent, to pay the bills, is a massive area of stress. Then moving on to planning a family, being new parents. As those parents amongst us will all know, it's immensely stressful. You know, one minute you've got life sorted, you're okay, you've kind of reached that stage where everything is fine, and then all of a sudden you have a baby and you're like, oh my God, what do I do now? And that in itself is a massive stress. You know, sleepless nights, sleep deprivation, coping with child starting school or child starting nursery, dealing with children, you know, all the problems that they have, whether they are suffering themselves from mental issues, they have anxiety, they have depression, bullying, whatever that means. Gradually, bit by bit, your life outside work has a massive impact on your life inside work. And as you get older, there's obviously health issues, physical health issues that you are encountering. And clearly also, it's not just childcare that you're concerned about, but as you get to the sandwich generation amongst us, it's also the elder care for our parents that we are also concerned about. And all of those things have a really huge impact on your productivity. So looking at what do corporate wellbeing packages offer? Now, wellbeing encompasses a huge range of services and products, which are suited for different people at different times during their employee life cycle. So you can have anything from medical and dental insurance to gym membership and personal counselling. One thing that is increasingly asked for is financial advice, since the pandemic has affected so many people's finances. This is for all ages, from the young seeking to get mortgages, to those trying to afford childcare, to the older members of the workforce worried about what's happening to their pensions. What is key is that no company is the same, and the demographic of your team will differ to that of your competitors or your partners. So when you're seeking a program, you need to not only look at the costs, but clearly at what will benefit your team the most and what will be used and valued. There is no point, for example, paying for gym membership when actually the reality is it won't get used, especially not at the moment. So the 4 pillars of wellbeing, the 4 issues that you should be looking to include within a corporate wellbeing program are mental, physical, financial, and social. This slide shows those 4 areas of well-being, and they are all interconnected. So for example, an excessive workload, whether at home or at work, leads to anxiety and depression, which can then lead to physical health problems. We all know about that connection between mind and body, but it is worth pointing it out again. So those people who regularly have exercise, regularly live an active lifestyle, have been shown to be more mentally fit and more mentally prepared for the stresses and anxiety of life. Financial stress can also therefore lead to both mental and physical health issues, and that is then connected to our social lives and so on and so forth. So whatever you're looking at in terms of a wellbeing program, you need to make sure that all 4 pillars are included. So what can you do to promote wellbeing? It's not all about great big employee assistance programs. It's not about spending an absolute fortune on medical insurance, on gym memberships, on all sorts of different topics and benefits. Ultimately, the main thing that you really need to do is improve the communication channels. Look at allowing flexible working and take the time out to listen, most importantly, to your employees and what they need. That one-to-one communication is completely and utterly valuable. And that's where SMEs stand out heads and tails above their larger competitors. Because if you have a line manager or a C board that is ready to listen to the people who work for them, that will actually stand you in much better stead when they come to you and say, look, I'm struggling with childcare, I'm struggling with financial issues, I'm struggling because I need to find a home, for example, for my elderly mother. You can then take each one of those people, listen to them, and then offer them the flexibility and support that they need. The Bupa Workplace Wellbeing Census found that the top 3 priorities for SME employees were flexible working, a manageable workload, and more recognition and understanding. So clearly allowing flexible work practices that show you trust your employees and allow them to work autonomously, and taking the time to acknowledge employees' efforts doesn't cost anything, but it goes a long way to reducing stress and increasing happiness. It's also possible for SMEs to offer a well-being program of some sort without breaking the bank. So there are innovative and resourceful ways to quote unquote find money in order to educate your workforce about well-being topics and also to promote relevant services that are out there. That signposting is really key because despite the fact we live in a mass internet generated world, trying to find the right care and trying to find somebody that is recommended and trusted, it takes a huge amount of time. I mean, trying to find the right nursery for your child, trying to find the time to find right elder care, for example, trying to find the right time to find somebody to help you with sleep deprivation or financial issues. There are so many millions of options out there. You could talk to 100 different people, but how do you know they are the ones to talk to? And effectively, by having somebody recommended by your employer, or even having discounts negotiated between your employer and the provider, actually really helps employees to know, well, I trust this person, my employer trusts this person, I will try this person out. The every little helps off-the-shelf approach means that wellbeing doesn't have to be that expensive. It is a case of doing a little, but actually it has a greater effect. I'd like to sort of touch now on actual employers themselves, because as employers running our own business, we are ourselves under a huge amount of stress. And people often forget, employees very often also forget, that actually we are suffering as well. And we need to be supported in understanding what's on offer and the ability to promote benefits to our employees. It's not just a tick box exercise. So when employees understand the benefits and understand what you are trying to do as an employee, they'll be more likely to engage with you, to trust you and value your judgment. So a positive, inclusive workplace where people feel valued will mean your employees feel happier, will stay longer and be more productive. And that obviously has the consequential effect that you will be less stressed and you will feel more relaxed in what you're trying to do. I'd like to sort of touch as an example of what we as a company, and this is just one of many providers who are out there, but we as a company offer the following SME wellbeing solutions. Wellbeing webinars on a range of topics from mental health to elder care to financial wellbeing. We offer support in childcare and elder care planning, search and solutions. And we provide fact sheets, information and signposting for employers and employees on a broad variety of wellbeing issues, as well as access at a discount to wellbeing partners. All of these are designed for small businesses from 15 employees upwards, because we recognise that actually we all need support, we all need help, and we don't need to spend an absolute fortune providing it. So in summary, I think, why is it important? Well, it is clearly vital that we look after the well-being not only of ourselves but of our workforce, and even more so post-pandemic, so that we can have a stronger economic recovery. I think SMEs, and I have one as well, I mean, I have 15 people within my organisation. We need to understand that an inclusive workplace culture with an emphasis on well-being, on being supported and promoted from the top, is the way forward. It might seem soft, it might seem less concrete than, you know, sales figures and P&L, but actually, you know, it makes a massive difference. And with a bit of creativity, well-being services can be affordable for SMEs. You just need to know where to look and where to find it. Now, I realise that was a run through of the pros and cons, but I'd like to now open this up to everybody. I'll share my webcam again. Our details, by the way, are down here, info at Parental Choice, if you want to learn more about what we are doing. But I'd like to now open it up to all of you and take your questions on effectively what you are seeing in the market and what you would like to know more about as an SME with regards to your employees' well-being.
Thank you, Sarah Jane. Yeah, now is the moment for questions. So please, all of you who have anything to ask Sarah Jane, this is the moment, your opportunity to get her expert advice. In case you joined later, this webinar was recorded. So in case you want to see the beginning or you have missed some information, don't worry. This webinar has been recorded and it will be available over email and also on our YouTube channel.
I've stunned you all into silence. If there are any questions,
let's give them. No, we do have questions. I really appreciate the research and statistics on well-being. before, doing after COVID. Can you please provide the slides citations? I'd love to use the research as well from Linda.
Yeah, so the main place where I found it was looking at, so Mercer Marsh Benefits has a lot of information, and similarly the Bupa Workplace Wellbeing Census that was taken in May of June of last year is both very comprehensive research papers on employee wellbeing. The McKinsey report, which came out, which was called Wellbeing in Europe, that came out about a month ago, and that really looks at the status of well-being, life satisfaction across Europe during lockdown, and how employers can improve employee well-being and life satisfaction going forward.
Thank you. Another question: if you are rather small or are used as a starting company, would you recommend trying to implement this from the very beginning, or at what stage of the development of the company would you recommend implementing a well-being program?
I would almost say from the very beginning. I think your employee well-being comes down to your culture and your values, and I think from the very beginning, you need to live and breathe your values. Your values will determine both the way you work internally as an organization, but also externally as an organization. And you need to be able to kind of say, so for example, Parental Choice's values are collaboration, flexibility, and being human, because ultimately for us, that's what counts. We have to work together, we have to work flexibly, and at the end of the day, we are all human, and therefore we have to support each other. And those values then determine what our customer value proposition is for our external clients and for them to understand where we are. So whilst you don't necessarily have to start spending money from the very beginning, I would say that having an employee wellbeing policy or flexible working policy, or understanding, so for example, in my organization, we have 3 duvet days per year. Now those are 3 days that employees can use at any point in time, whether it's because the washing machine man is coming to fix the washing machine, or whether it's simply it's not a holiday, they just need some time, some space to be effectively. And they don't have to say I'm sick, they don't have to say I'm on holiday, they just can go sit in a park and just recoup. Or similarly, it could be something that they just want to go and spend the day with their children. It's just an extra day, and that doesn't cost you really from the beginning at all. It's something that is there and is available and shows that you care. So I think it's very important to have an employee wellbeing policy, to start thinking about flexibility, to start thinking about collaboration, to start thinking about how you can support people from the very beginning, because people will have childcare issues or elder care issues or mental health issues from the very beginning. And if you let it be known that you are there for them, even if you don't put money into counselling or money into gym memberships or whatever it is, then I think that will go a long way.
Thank you. And you were talking about investment and money. How much should a business owner expect to invest in a well-being program once they have decided it's something more structured, what they want to do? What would you say is an average of an expected investment to be made in a company?
That's really how long is a piece of string. I mean, you can spend millions. I mean, big companies spend absolute millions on employee well-being. I think you need to kind of look at it in a different way. Rather than saying how much do I need to spend, you need to say what do I need. Do I need an all-encompassing program that offers access to lots of different things, or do I just need to say I'm just going to give gym membership and then spend money on team days out or whatever it might be? It's a case of sitting, because some people, for example, may not want gym memberships. You might, in my organization, I offered to pay for gym memberships for everybody, and actually a lot of people said, no, I've already got it, or no, I already have this through my husband or my wife. then I offered to pay for medical health insurance, and a lot of them are already covered anyway through their family health schemes. So there's no point paying for something that they're not going to use. Whereas if as a small organization you do something that's more encompassing, but rather signposts or offers discounts on services, that might be a better place to start. And then gradually, as you get bigger and you have more money to spend, you can survey your employees and find out what it is, what else that they want and what else they would like to have the money spent on.
Got it. Thank you. And a little bit related to your to the previous questions, another question we have here: how do you go about designing a well-being program for a small business? Like, where do you start?
Sorry, say that again. Sorry.
Where do you start when you want to go about designing a well-being program for a small business? What would be a first step?
I think, gosh, good question. I think first of all, start with what you can do internally, what you can provide. So, for example, mental first aiders is something that St John's Ambulance runs courses in. You can train up certain individuals to be mental health first aiders. So that's a good internal resource that people have access to. Then I would also say that you need to look at your demographic, so how old your staff are, whether they are, so if they are majoritively parents, then focusing something on childcare might be better for them. If they are very young, then financial well-being, so if they are young or old, financial well-being is of great interest right now. There are other services such as will writing services, there's fertility and surrogacy services, there's all sorts of services out there, but I think you need to look at the demographic of your staff, look at your budget clearly, and look at whether you can do lots of little things to create a bigger impact or do one big thing to create an impact.
Great, thank you so much. Any other questions, people? This is the opportunity for you. I don't know if there's anything else. I think if you want to connect with Sarah, her contact information is right there at the bottom of her presentation. Feel free to reach out if you are interested in getting advice, or if you have any follow-up questions. I encourage you to reach out. I have some business in Bangladesh. How should I manage my employee salary in this situation? Because due to the pandemic, everything is closed here. We have this question from Bangladesh.
I'm afraid I don't know much about life in Bangladesh. I have to say, I think where you are trying to manage people in Bangladesh, especially during the lockdown, I think where you can't actually reach out to people, and where salary is difficult because of the economic circumstances, I think it's a case of talking to people. Never underestimate communication. I mean, I think well-being makes a huge difference if you're listened to. So with any employee where you can't do anything immediately right now because of the situation, I would say listen to them, understand them, try and be as flexible as possible, try and be as communicative as possible. If it's possible to get together, I don't know what the current lockdown provisions are in Bangladesh, but for example, in the UK, you can meet outside in small groups, then that social interaction, albeit social distancing, is really important, because people have been so locked up in their own homes and so used to talking on Zoom and on Teams meetings that actually they forget the benefit of that interaction, that social interaction, specifically on their mental health. And those things don't cost a lot of money and can have a real impact. I mean, one thing I would say to anybody listening is that if you do have any questions on setting up SMEs, SME wellbeing programs, if you do want any suggestions as to what should or should not be included within them beyond what I have said today, then do please contact us. We're based both in out of Hong Kong and out of London. And you know, our job is to try and make sure that companies can do the best for their working parents. And that doesn't need to be a huge amount. People think you have to spend a huge amount, but actually that's not the case.
Awesome. Any other question? Otherwise, I don't know if there's anything else you would like to add, Sarah Jane.
No, I mean, I just want to say, you know, it's tough out there right now. A lot of people, both employees and employers, are struggling, both economically, financially, you know, mentally. We're all feeling the pressure. So give yourself some slack. The fact that you're actually on this webinar means that you care, and that goes a long way. There's a lot of employers out there who still just don't care, and they think it's all soft and namby-pamby and doesn't have an impact. I think the more you can do in recognizing that your employee is a human, the better the employer you will be.
100% agree. Thank you so much, Sarah Jane. This was very insightful, and I hope it was helpful to all the people who joined, who I'm assuming are business owners also struggling, as you mentioned, and trying to, you know, keep their employees engaged and happy. Okay, in case you want to reach out to Sarah Jane, you find her contact information right there at the bottom of her slide. You will receive the recording. You're getting a lot of thank yous and a lot of congratulations, Sarah Jane. This was really helpful. Thank you so much, as always. Reach out to her in case you want to do business with Sarah Jane. I think there's a lot of opportunities for advice. I would say this webinar is done. Please follow us on YouTube for the recordings of previous webinars as well. Thank you so much, Sarah Jane, and have a great rest of the day.
You too. All the best, everybody.
Thank you.